You ever watch a man's face crumble in real time? I mean, that moment when his whole ego, all his fake power, melts right off his skin? That's what I saw sitting across from Dennis, Greg, and Marcus the morning they realized I'd gutted their entire kingdom from the inside out. These were men who strutted around like gods, puffing cigars, barking orders, and smirking every time they signed my pathetic paycheck. And yet, when the truth hit, they looked like scared little boys who'd just pissed themselves in front of the whole class. Dennis actually clutched his chest like he was having a damn heart attack when he found out their biggest client had jumped ship, straight into the arms of their competitor. Greg's forehead was dripping sweat, blotting his stupid silk tie. And Marcus? He just kept muttering, This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. Like a broken record. Oh, it made sense, all right. I made it happen. I was the one who had twisted every deal, planted every poison seed, whispered every carefully chosen lie until the floor caved in beneath them. And the best part? They'd spent the last 2 years thanking me for being their most loyal employee while I sharpened the knife. But let me rewind. Because to understand why I did what I did and how I pulled it off without leaving a single fingerprint, you need to know who I am, where I came from, and how badly they fucked with the wrong woman. My name is Camille. I'm 32 now, living in Chicago, but this started when I was 26, barely holding myself together in St. Louis. I thought I'd hit the jackpot landing a job at this mid-sized logistics firm downtown. Glass-walled offices, shiny leather chairs, fixed smiles, endless promises about growth opportunities. It was supposed to be the dream. Instead, it was a trap. The first thing you noticed about that place wasn't the money or the hustle. It was the boys' club. And yes, I said boys, because these men weren't sophisticated. They were frat bros with fancier suits. Loud voices, louder laughs, misogyny dressed up as banter. You didn't get to sit at the table unless you had a dick, and last I checked, mine was missing. I told myself I'd push through. I needed the paycheck. My parents had worked themselves to the bone just to keep food on the table, and I wasn't about to run back home whining. I worked late, I brought results, I kept my head down. But it all cracked one night at some crappy bar after work. Everyone was half drunk, scarfing down wings and cheap beer, when a guy from my department let something slip. His salary. I froze. Because it wasn't just a little higher than mine, it was thousands more. Same title, same job description, same damn cubicle. I laughed it off in the moment, but inside my stomach turned to stone. Over the next few weeks, I dug around the only way I could. Casual conversations, happy hour slips of the tongue, and sure enough, all the men around me were pulling in fat checks while I was scraping my. That was the night I stopped being grateful and started being dangerous. Now, here's where most people expect me to say I went crying to HR, or I gathered proof, or I started filing complaints. Please. HR was a puppet show run by the very assholes robbing me. If I'd walked in with a file of evidence, I'd have walked out unemployed. So instead, I smiled. I played the game harder than anyone else. I let them believe I was the eager little helper, the one who always picked up the pieces, smoothed things over with clients, stayed late when no one else would. They patted me on the head, called me the glue that holds this place together. What they didn't realize is that glue can also choke. I didn't gather documents. I didn't need to. I started planting mines instead. Subtle things. Tiny things, mistakes that didn't look like mistakes. The wrong number slipped into a contract draft. A client accidentally hearing that Dennis was too hungover to make his last meeting. A whispered concern dropped into the right ear at the right time. Nothing big enough to trace, nothing loud enough to pin on me, just enough to make cracks in their golden image. And here's the delicious part, they thought I was saving them. Every time something blew up, I was there with the fix. Camille the problem solver. Camille the reliable one. They leaned on me, trusted me more, even praised me publicly. And the more they leaned, the more I tilted the ground beneath their feet. By the time they realized their empire was rotting, it was too late. Their clients were gone, their reputation was shredded, and I was standing there smiling sweetly, already holding an offer from their biggest rival. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because before the downfall came the slow burn. And the spark that lit it? That came from one stupid mistake Greg made, a mistake I noticed, twisted, and turned into the beginning of their end. Want to guess what it was?
Greg. God, where do I start with Greg? Imagine the kind of guy who brags about crushing deals, but can't even spell negotiation without help from spell check. The type who thinks women should only work in HR or reception, but somehow gets lost finding his own office. Yeah, that was Greg. And his mistake? Oh, it was beautiful in its stupidity. One Thursday morning, he was trying to impress some big-shot client from Detroit. He strutted around the office, chest puffed out, rehearsing his pitch voice like some second-rate actor. Everyone knew he was full of shit, but he was too arrogant to care. The meeting was supposed to be locked down, conference room booked, presentation polished, numbers airtight. But Greg forgot one little thing. He left the wrong draft of the proposal on the client's desk. I saw it, watched the client's eyes narrow as he skimmed through, realizing the numbers didn't match what Greg had promised on the call the week before. I jumped in, smiled politely, and said, "Oh, sorry, that's an outdated version. I'll make sure you get the correct one." I rushed to print the right draft, saving Greg's ass. At least that's what everyone thought. But here's the twist. I didn't hand over the right version. Not completely. I gave them one where the shipping costs were inflated just enough to make us look careless, but not enough to raise alarms immediately. The client walked out smiling, but behind that smile, doubt. And once doubt creeps in, it's hard to shake. So from that day on, I realized something critical. These men weren't just assholes. They were sloppy assholes. They relied on me to fix their mistakes. And if I could fix them wrong, well, they'd be too blind to notice until the damage was done. So I leaned in. Every time Greg opened his big mouth in a meeting, I quietly massaged the numbers in ways that made clients question his credibility. When Marcus tried to close a deal with a vendor, I sent an oops, wrong email that painted him as unreliable. Dennis, he was the easiest. He'd forget names, mix up accounts, and I'd just nod and correct him. Except sometimes I corrected him into saying the exact wrong thing at the exact wrong time. The brilliance of it was how normal it looked. They thought I was bailing them out, when really I was planting dynamite under every deal they touched. And you know what? They rewarded me for it. Gave me more access, more responsibility, more praise. Camille, the fixer. Camille, the loyal soldier. Meanwhile, I was whispering little things to clients during coffee breaks. Like, "Oh, Dennis, he's been so stressed lately. I worry he's not keeping track of all these moving parts." Or, "Greg has got a lot on his plate. Sometimes things slip through the cracks." Always soft, always concerned, like I was protecting them. Clients lapped it up. Those whispers grew teeth. But revenge isn't just about wrecking the enemy. It's about the timing. You can't just blow everything up at once. You let them keep walking, keep strutting until they're right on the edge of the cliff, and then one small push. That push came faster than I expected, and ironically, it was Dennis, the smartest of the three, who handed it to me on a silver platter. Dennis always carried himself like he was the brains of the trio.
He was the one with the smug little smirk, the guy who'd cut people off mid-sentence with actually, that's not how it works. If Greg was the loud frat bro and Marcus was the yes man, Dennis fancied himself a mastermind. But masterminds don't get sloppy with their vices. And Dennis had one hell of a vice. He was a gambler. Not the kind who casually bets on the Super Bowl. I'm talking addicted. Sports betting, online poker, shady backroom games, you name it. Every Monday, like clockwork, he'd stroll into the office, either on top of the world, buying everyone breakfast burritos and bragging about how he'd cleaned house, or he'd sulk around, snapping at everyone because he'd lost half a paycheck. The funny part? He thought nobody noticed. But addicts always slip, and Dennis slipped right in front of me. One Friday night, I stayed late, pretending to finish reports. Dennis was still there, yelling into his phone behind closed doors. His door wasn't fully shut, though, and I caught enough to piece it together. He owed someone money. Big money. And the way his voice cracked, let's just say it wasn't to a friendly little betting site. That's when the devil on my shoulder spoke up. What if his little problem could become your weapon? So I started feeding it. Casually, quietly, never too much. I'd slide an article about sports analytics on his desk like it was junk mail. I'd mention a friend who made a killing on a bet last weekend. Each time, his eyes would light up just a little too much. Then, one afternoon, I struck gold. He was bragging about having a sure thing in some college basketball game, and I leaned in with the sweetest, most innocent voice. You know, Dennis, my cousin is into that stuff. He swears the odds are never as simple as they look. Dennis bit instantly. Oh yeah, what does he use? Inside info? I shrugged, smiling. He's got these, let's just say, reliable tips. Of course, there was no cousin, there were no tips, but Dennis didn't know that, and within a week, he was begging me for a connection. So I invented one. I created a fake email address posing as some expert bettor named Travis, fed Dennis just enough small wins to hook him deeper, and then, oh man, I started feeding him poison. Bad picks dressed up as gold. Sure things that tanked spectacularly. And here's the genius. Every time Dennis lost, it wasn't just his money. He started dipping into company funds, shifting little amounts here and there, confident he could win it back before anyone noticed. Greg and Marcus trusted him with the numbers, so who would question the great Dennis? Me. That's who. I didn't need to dig through files or flash drives. I had him digging his own grave, one bad bet at a time. And the ripple effect was glorious. Deals started falling through because Dennis was distracted, desperate, half out of his mind. Clients noticed he was off his game. Greg and Marcus started whispering about his sloppiness. And me, I was right there, soothing them, covering his mistakes, earning more of their trust. But I wasn't done, because what's better than watching one man implode? Watching him drag his partners down with him. That's when I set the trap. I dangled a too-good-to-be-true business lead in front of Greg and Marcus, a lead Dennis vouched for because he thought it would make him look competent again. They bit hard. And just like that, I had them all walking straight into the fire. Now, here's where it gets twisted. That fake lead, it wasn't just about money. It was about humiliation. Public, unforgettable humiliation.
If you've never seen three arrogant men humiliated in public, let me tell you, it's better than any paycheck I ever cashed in that office. The lead I dangled was pure fiction, stitched together with just enough reality to feel legit. I invented a supposed shipping company out of Indianapolis called Riverstone Logistics. The name sounded sleek, respectable.
I mocked up a fake website, slapped together a LinkedIn page with a few stolen stock headshots, even spun up a burner phone number with some poor intern-sounding assistant voice I recorded myself. Dennis swallowed it first. Desperate to redeem himself, he pitched it to Greg and Marcus as the big break. These guys are expanding fast. Tons of contracts up for grabs. We'd be stupid not to jump in. Greg, of course, was already daydreaming about bonuses, while Marcus just nodded along like a trained dog. They didn't even do real due diligence. They just charged full steam ahead. Idiots. I nudged things along, booking a meeting at a swanky steakhouse downtown. Oh, I wish you could have seen them swaggering. Dennis in his too tight suit, Greg sweating through his shirt, trying to look important, Marcus carrying a leather folder like he even knew what was inside. They ordered expensive wine, talked big numbers, bragged about their market reach. And who showed up for Riverstone Logistics? Nobody! Not a soul! They sat there, waiting for an hour. Then 2. Dennis tried calling the number straight to voicemail. Greg ranted about unprofessionalism. Marcus, red-faced, begged the waiter for another round of drinks. And all around them in that packed steakhouse, people noticed. 3 loud, overdressed execs shouting about a deal that didn't exist. By dessert, they were a spectacle, laughingstock of the whole place. And me? I was back at the office the whole time, making sure the fallout spread. I'd already primed a couple of clients by casually dropping, "The guys are meeting with Riverstone today. Big deal, if it's real. If it's real." Those 3 little words were all it took. So when word got out the company didn't exist, everyone connected the dots. They weren't shrewd businessmen. They were gullible clowns. Overnight, whispers turned into open jokes. Competitors mocked them. Clients called not to talk contracts, but to laugh. One even told me, "Camille, I don't know how you put up with those buffoons." And I just smiled, voice dripping with fake loyalty. They mean well. They just get a little ahead of themselves sometimes. But humiliation was just the appetizer, because I knew public embarrassment would make them desperate. And desperation, that's the perfect fuel for self-destruction. Sure enough, Greg tried to patch things up by forcing some reckless contract through with an old partner. Marcus scrambled to reassure investors. And Dennis? Oh, poor Dennis doubled down on his gambling, convinced he could make one big win to wipe it all clean. They were flailing, scrambling, grasping at straws. And all the while, I was right there, supporting them, making sure every move they made only dug the hole deeper. By the time I was finished, they wouldn't just lose clients. They'd lose the company, their reputations, everything they'd built on the backs of women like me. But here's the thing. I wasn't satisfied with just ruining them professionally. I wanted it personal. I wanted it to sting every time they woke up in the morning. And as fate would have it, Marcus, quiet, obedient Marcus, handed me the perfect weapon for that final personal twist. Do you want to hear how I turned the weakest link into the nail in all their coffins?
Marcus was always the quiet one, the lapdog. If Dennis barked, Marcus fetched. If Greg puffed his chest, Marcus clapped. He was the kind of man who avoided confrontation by hiding behind paperwork and saying yes to whatever voice was loudest in the room. That's what made him dangerous. Not because he was smart, but because people like Marcus always have secrets. And when they crack, those secrets spill. And oh boy, did Marcus crack. It started with something small. One Monday morning, I caught him in the break room staring at his phone with that pale, sick look people get when they've just read something they shouldn't have. He shoved it in his pocket when I walked in, mumbling something about emails. But Marcus wasn't slick. He was sweating bullets over something. So I did what I did best. I played nice. I softened my voice, leaned in with that "I'm just looking out for you" tone. "Everything okay, Marcus? You seem stressed." He tried brushing me off, but weak men crumble when they think they've found a sympathetic ear. Within 2 weeks, I had him spilling the truth over after-work drinks. Turns out, Marcus had been embezzling too. Not for gambling like Dennis, not for flashy toys like Greg, but to cover up something much more humiliating. Marcus had a mistress, a young one, and she had expensive taste. He'd been siphoning small amounts here and there to pay her rent, her vacations, her little designer handbags. And when she started threatening to tell his wife if he didn't step up, Marcus panicked. He started moving larger chunks, quietly, but not quietly enough. The best part? He thought I was his confidant. He leaned across the bar one night, whispering, "Camille, I don't know what to do. If the guys find out, I'm dead. If my wife finds out, I'm worse than dead." His hands were trembling around his whiskey glass. And that's when I knew Marcus wasn't just the weakest link, he was the detonator. See, Dennis was already hanging by a thread with his gambling debts. Greg was publicly humiliated and scrambling to fix his image. All I needed was one spark to set them against each other. And Marcus gave me that spark gift-wrapped. I didn't run to his wife. Not yet. Too easy. Too obvious. Instead, I whispered just enough in Greg's ear. Something like, "Marcus seems distracted lately. I'm worried he's moving money without telling you guys." And then I dropped a different version to Dennis. "Funny thing, Marcus has been asking a lot of questions about your accounts, almost like he's checking your numbers." Men like them don't trust each other to begin with. By the end of the week, they were side-eyeing Marcus in every meeting, grilling him about invoices, snapping at him when numbers didn't line up. And me? I just stood there with my notebook, pretending to look confused. The pressure cooked Marcus alive. He started slipping up, fumbling explanations, stammering, contradicting himself, which, of course, I nudged along by accidentally dropping a file on the wrong desk here, sending an email to the wrong person there. Tiny accidents that looked like Marcus's fault. Then came the explosion. Greg stormed into Dennis's office one afternoon, yelling about missing funds. Dennis accused Marcus of sabotage. Marcus, red-faced and panicked, tried to point fingers back. They tore each other apart, while I sat 2 doors down, sipping my coffee like it was the best show in town. And here's the kicker. While they were busy imploding, I had already arranged my exit. My resume had accidentally landed on the desk of their biggest competitor, complete with glowing references from clients I'd been buttering up for months. By the time my resignation hit their inbox, I had a corner office waiting for me across town. And Marcus? His wife found out anyway. Not from me, at least not directly. Let's just say a few anonymous screenshots made their way to her Facebook messages. The mistress went public. Marcus's marriage collapsed in flames. So there they were, Dennis drowning in debt, Greg a public fool, Marcus divorced and disgraced. Their empire reduced to ashes. And me? I walked away spotless, richer, and stronger than ever. But here's what I didn't expect. The phone call that came 2 months later. A voice I hadn't heard in years. Someone who had their own vendetta against those 3 men. Someone who wanted to partner with me. And that, my friends, is when things got even darker.
I almost didn't pick up. My new office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River, a brand new desk that still smelled like polished oak, and a paycheck that finally felt like justice. I was 2 months into my new role at their competitor, thriving, respected, untouchable. So when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number, I thought about ignoring it. But curiosity always gets me. Camille. The voice drawled, smooth but heavy, like someone who'd been drinking bourbon for breakfast. I don't know you, but I know what you did to Dennis, Greg, and Marcus. I froze. My new assistant was standing a few feet away, sorting mail. I casually swiveled my chair to face the window, lowering my voice. I think you've got the wrong number. The man chuckled. Don't play coy. What you pulled, beautiful. You dismantled those bastards in a way no one else had the guts to do. And trust me, I've wanted to see them burn for a long time. My heart thudded, but not with fear, with intrigue, because whoever this was, he wasn't threatening me. He was admiring me. Who the hell are you? I finally asked. There was a pause. Then, let's just say I used to be on the other side of their games. They cut me out, cheated me. Cost me everything, and I've been waiting for a partner who could finish the job. I should have hung up. I should have laughed, blocked the number, and gone back to my shiny new life. But you know that thrill when someone recognizes the darkest, sharpest part of you, the part everyone else overlooks? Yeah, that's what his voice did to me. I don't work for free, I said finally. Oh, you'll be paid. Not in money, in power. And just like that, I was hooked. We met a week later at a dingy diner outside the city, neutral ground. He was older than I expected, late 40s maybe, with tired eyes and a scar along his jaw that hinted at bad history. His name was Adrian, former investor in the firm. The men had iced him out years back, blamed him for a failed deal, and ruined his reputation in the industry. He'd been waiting, stewing, watching them climb while he sunk. But now they were dangling by a thread, thanks to me. Adrian leaned across the table, his voice low. They're desperate, broke, begging for scraps. This is the perfect time to gut them completely. And with your access, your insight, we can finish it. I stirred my coffee, considering him. I didn't need revenge anymore. I'd won. But there was something intoxicating about the idea of twisting the knife deeper, of dragging those men so low they'd never recover. What's in it for me? I asked. Adrian smirked. Their assets, their contacts, their silence. You help me dismantle what's left, I make sure you walk away with everything they used to own. I should have said no. But the thought of them waking up to find not only their company gone, but their houses, their cars, their last shreds of dignity, God, it was too sweet to resist. So I shook his hand. And that's how I went from the woman they underpaid and underestimated to the woman who became their executioner, with a partner just as ruthless as me. But what Adrian didn't tell me that night, what I didn't know until it was too late, was that I wasn't the only playing games in this story. Now here's the question. Do you want to hear how I found out I wasn't the only predator in this story?
You think I walked away quietly? Hell no. Men like Adrian thrive on the belief that women like me won't bite back. And maybe that's what made it so fun, watching him underestimate me the same way Dennis, Greg, and Marcus had. The night I learned he'd been slithering around my new office, I didn't panic. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat by the window of my high-rise apartment, and started sketching a plan. If Adrian wanted to play puppeteer, then fine. I'd cut the strings, wrap them around his neck, and make him dance. The first step was easy. Feed him rope. I acted normal. Kept meeting him at diners, nodding along to his big ideas, gave him just enough leads to keep him greedy. Some were real, some fake, but all of them traceable. I built a trail. Emails, messages, phone logs, linking Adrian to shady deals he thought were bulletproof. He bragged about contacts, bragged about how he was coming back from the dead. And all the while, I smiled and encouraged him to talk more. The second step? Flip the script with my boss. I walked into his office one afternoon, calm as ever, and dropped a single line. "Did you know Adrian's been circling you?" My boss looked confused, played dumb, but I could see it in his eyes. They already knew. They were in talks. Adrian had been cozying up, selling himself as the wounded genius, the man with the inside track. So I did what I do best. I planted doubt. He's been asking me for information, pushing me. Something doesn't feel right. That was enough. Men like my boss don't trust easily, and Adrian's reputation was already shaky. Now I had both of them watching their backs instead of watching me. Step 3, light the fire. I staged one final deal for Adrian, a fake consortium of investors eager to back him if he could deliver one thing: proof that he still had control in the industry. Specifically, proof he could sink what was left of Dennis, Greg, and Marcus's scraps of a company. And oh, Adrian bit hard. He went all in, trying to rope my boss into it, trying to drag me deeper. But what he didn't know? Every call, every email, every message went straight to a little burner laptop I'd set up. Recorded, time-stamped, undeniable. And then I leaked it. Not to the police, not to regulators. No. That would have been too clean, too merciful. I leaked it to the trade press, the gossip blogs, the vultures who circle this industry waiting for blood. Overnight, Adrian went from the man staging a comeback to the con artist trying to scam investors with a disgraced executive team. And the fallout was nuclear. My boss cut ties immediately. Adrian's name trended on LinkedIn for all the wrong reasons. And Dennis, Greg, and Marcus? The irony. They became collateral damage in Adrian's implosion. Whatever pitiful credibility they had left was obliterated when their names got dragged into his scam. And me? I was untouchable. I'd been the loyal employee who warned us, the woman who had once again saved her company from disaster. I stood at the edge of the nest, spotless, watching the men burn while everyone patted me on the back. But here's the thing about revenge. You tell yourself there's a finish line, that once they've fallen, once you've walked away with your head high, you'll be satisfied. But that night, lying in bed, staring at the city lights, I felt it creeping in again. That itch, that hunger.
And that was it. The empire that once laughed at me, belittled me, and robbed me blind was gone. Dennis, Greg, and Marcus weren't power players anymore. They were punchlines. Men who strutted around like gods, reduced to rubble by the same woman they thought wasn't worth a fair paycheck. Adrian, the so-called mastermind, had joined them in the fire, his reputation shredded beyond repair. And me? I walked away untouched. For years, I'd been underestimated, paid less, dismissed, mocked. I was the girl who worked hard but didn't matter. And yet, in the end, I mattered more than any of them. Because I didn't just survive their abuse, I rewrote the game. Here's the part people don't tell you about revenge. It doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's quieter. Sometimes it's just watching your enemies sit in the ashes, knowing they'll never rise again, and knowing you were the one who lit the match. But let me be clear, it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about respect, about justice, about making sure that every smug laugh, every